أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحابه ومن اهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهادي هدي محمد صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي لا تؤاخذني مما يقولون واغفر لي ما لا يعلمون واجعلني خيرا مما يظنون أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to the house of dua. Welcome to the platform from which you learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about His creation, about His message, about His messenger, and of course, about His preferred religion known as Al-Islam. Welcome to the channel from which you learn how to live in the world we live today successfully and how to return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for greater success on the day of accountability. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, today we are coming to you with a reality check. We are coming to you with an investigation of an issue that appears very much obscured, very much hidden from all of us, to the extent that we make mistakes from time to time. And we want to make sure that from today we avoid such mistakes. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, do you know, by way of a question, that the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect? There's no error in the creation. Allah does not make mistakes. He is perfect in His design. He is perfect in His decrees. And He is perfect in His plans. Whatever He does is perfect, not questionable. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La yuswalu amma yaf'alu wa hum yuswalun. You cannot question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over what He does. It is they, the human beings, and the jinns, and every creature on the planet that is subject to questioning by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, do you believe that there is no error in the creation? Do you believe that whatever happens in the creation is by the design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And do you believe, therefore, that there is every goodness in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created? If we believe that the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect, and that what He does is perfect, and that there is goodness in everything that He does, why is it therefore that when something happens to you, which adversely affects you, you tend to lose hope? Why is it that you tend to lose hope and find a blame for other people, or you blame Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being responsible for your predicament? Why is it that when something adverse happens to you, you lose hope? Why is it that you cannot find goodness in that which has happened to you? The reason is that we are so carried away by what we can see nakedly with our eyes. We are so carried away by that which directly affects us. And we are not able to look beyond that to perceive the greater picture, to understand the meaning of things as they happen. This is a very, very serious deficiency amongst us as human beings. There is perfection in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, there are two sides to it. It's important for us to understand. When something happens to you that is not to your own liking, think deeply. There could be something hidden. There could be something that is of greater value to you that is down the road. You cannot perceive it immediately if you get carried away by the effects of what has happened to you. We as Muslims are required to continue to strive to strive to appreciate the goodness in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, to strive to make the best use of a bad situation. It is not good to rush to conclusion that what has happened to you is bad, and as a result of that, there's something either wrong with you or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates you. We must not rush to that conclusion. A good believer is one, whatever comes to him or her, believes that it couldn't have happened unless it was by the permission of Allah or decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to happen to him or her. And in most cases, as a test to see how you're going to behave. But unfortunately, there are many of us who are not able to consider the goodness in everything that happens to them. Especially if it affects them adversely, they think that that is it all. They cannot discover that that thing could probably be a bridge to that which is better. So today we want to remind you and remind ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His perfect creation, has not decreed adversity for us all the time. That's not to say we cannot come across adversities, but behind it, there's a hidden treasure that we need to discover. It could just be a lesson, a message to us to discover that which is better than what is happening now. And even when goodness comes to you, it's important for you to understand that that goodness could probably be a tip of the iceberg, that something greater is coming. Or that it could be that that goodness, after it, there may be a little bit of test down the road for you. That's why in the affairs of a Muslim, therefore, good or bad happens, the Muslim has to accept it in good faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Zariyat, which is chapter 51 of the Holy Quran, verse 49, Allah says, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ فَفِرُّوا إِلَى اللَّهِ إِنِّي لَكُمْ نَذِيرٌ مُبِينٌ. Everything created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in pairs. Meaning what? There is good side, there is bad side. The good may appear first, and while the not so good will follow. Or the not so good will appear first, and the good is coming behind or coming ahead. And you don't know. So if you are not a serious thinking believer, you will be carried away by the fact that what has happened now is an end in itself, whereas it could only be a means to an end. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in this planet is in pairs. Consider the night and the day. They are in pairs. Consider darkness and light in pairs. Consider dry and wet season in pairs. Each of them has its own relative advantage. No one is better or worse than the other. The betterness or the worstness of it depends on your perception, on your ability to understand what is going on around you. Have you heard of the common saying that every disappointment is a blessing? It means that what comes to you by way of disappointment, if you evaluate it properly, there's a hidden treasure somewhere. It could also mean that what happens to you, even though you don't like it, it's an advantage for somebody else. And I'm sure you have also heard of the saying that too much of everything is bad. Even if you are doing something good right now, and it's very good, if you get so obsessed with it, the likelihood is that you are going to transgress some limits. And you will end up in trouble. Which means, therefore, that even in terms of goodness, there have to be some moderation in our own affairs. I'm sure you have also heard of the saying that one man's meat is another's poison. That which you think is bad to another person may just be a treasure. You don't know. This is the relative advantage we have in life. The way I see things is not the way you see things. Allah has given us different perceptibilities for us to be able to understand what is happening around us. Let's take some common examples. There are some professions that may seem to be bad to some people, whereas it is good for others. Let's take the issue of criminality. When a crime happens, somebody is a victim, and that person sees the bad part of criminality. But then, somebody is happy somewhere. The lawyer is happy that crime has occurred. Now it's a source of business for him. Same thing, when an earthquake happens, there are victims. But those who run funeral homes, or those who provide rescue operations, or those who have materials to sell that those who are victims of earthquake will need immediately, they are smiling to the bank. Thank God that an earthquake has happened. Same thing with the doctors. If we are not sick, how will the doctor find a way to make money? So if sickness is a problem for you, it's a source of joy to the doctor. In some cases, therefore, the doctors may be praying that people should be sick, or the lawyers may be praying that people should commit crime, or those who sell material resources may pray that earthquake will happen, or a hurricane, or a tornado to destroy people's homes, so that they will have an opportunity to sell. So one man's meat may be another's poison. The same thing with fighting in the war. There are so many crises across the world, resulting in human death and destruction of property. But guess what? Those who deal in arms and weapons, they are laughing to the bank, happy that there is business for them. All this go to show that, yes, to you it may be bad, but to another person is good. And even that which you think is bad to you right now, if you look at it deeply, it may not be bad, because there's something better that you are not seeing right now that is coming ahead. That's why in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 216, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kutiba alaykumul kitab wa huwa kurhun lakum wa asa an takrahu shay'an wa huwa khairun lakum wa asa an tuhibbu shay'an wa huwa sharrun lakum wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. In the days of struggle for the deen, to defend the deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, fighting has been prescribed for you in defense of the deen. But there are some of you who will not like it. Whereas in fact, there is goodness in that which they don't like on the surface. And those things they like on the surface, it will not be so good for them. So, which means that there is something hidden that we are not seeing. But by the plan of Allah, it is there for you. Allah does not intend hardship for you. Allah has not intended hardship for you when it comes to the deen of Islam. When it comes to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah says it's not His desire to make things hard for you. His goal is to purify you and to make you a better person, so that you show gratitude to Him. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, it's our responsibility to strive to discover the goodness in anything that happens to us, because nothing happens to us without Allah's knowledge or decreed by Him. فَإِنَّهُ هُوَ يَعْلَمُ مَا كَانَ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا يَكُونُ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا لَمْ يَكُونْ وَيَعْلَمُ مَا لَمْ يَكُونْ إِذَا كَانَ كَيْفَ يَكُونُ. For Allah is the one who knows what happens now, what happened before, what will happen tomorrow, and what will not happen tomorrow. And if that which will not happen tomorrow were to happen, is the one who knows how it could have happened. That's the knowledge of Allah. It's a superior knowledge that we don't have. So whatever happens to you should not be taken as a punishment from Allah, or that you are a deficient person. No, it could just be a call to you to action. If what happened to you is good, remember that there's something better somewhere. And if what happens to you is bad, remember that it could just be a bridge to that which is better. This is the way life works. There is no mistake in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Let's go to the Quran and see some of the verses that remind us about that. That in every creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is goodness. Even if artificially or on the face of it, it doesn't seem good to you. Or even though you might be affected by the interaction of these creatures, you might be adversely affected. Remember, there's always something better. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept for you. In Surah As-Sajdah, which is chapter 32 of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allahu lazi khalaqa samawati wal arda wa ma bainahuma fi sittati ayamin thumma stawa 'alal arsh ma lakum min dunihi min waliyyin wala shafi'in afala tatazakkarun yudabbiru al-amra minas samai ila al-ard thumma yaruju ilayhi fi yawmin kana miqdaruhu alfa sana mimma ta'udun ذلك عالم الغيب وشهادة العزيز الرحيم الذي أحسن كل شيء خلقه وبعد خلق الإنسان من طين ثم جعل نسله من سلالة من ماء مهين ثم سواه ونفخ فيه من روحه وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. It is Allah who created the heaven and the earth in 6 days and created the sun and the moon and established a path for them, a path in which they don't cross one another. And it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who sends command from the heaven to the planet and gets a reply in a day equivalent to our own 1,000 years by way of our own reckoning. The one who has created man from dust from the beginning and decreed later procreation by the use of intercourse. And after that, he gives you ears to hear and eyes to see and mind to reason. But then when you want to give back to Allah, you give back so little. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, listen to this verse. Allah says, it is Allah who has created everything in the planet in the best condition. There's nothing missing in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Nothing. In Surah Al-Mulk, which is chapter 67 of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ma tara fi khalqi rahmani min tafawut fanajin basara hatara min futur thumma rajin basara karateni yanqalibu ilayka basarun khasiyan wa huwa hasir. You will not find error in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Take a look at the heaven, take a look at the planet, the earth. You won't find error in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Take a look at it again. Antara min futur, do you find any error, any open space that is not covered? The answer is no. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah At-Tin says, we have created man in the best of mold. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the shape He has given to us, there is no alternative to it. What He has done is the best. And in Surah Al-Araf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna rabbakum Allahu allazi khalaqa samawati wal arda fi sittati ayamin thumma stawa 'alal arsh yughshi al-layla an-nahara yatlubuhu hafithan والشمس والقمر والنجوم مسخرات بأمره ألا له الخلق والأمر تبارك الله رب العالمين. Your Lord who created you, that you should worship, is the one. He created the heaven and the earth. He created them in 6 days and rose over His throne and created the sun and the moon and the stars to revolve in their own orbits created for them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything operates according to the command of Allah. Blessed is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqin. The best in creation. And who creates also that which is the best. And dear brothers, my dear sisters, all these verses remind us that what Allah has created, there's no error in it. And the interaction between these creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will affect you in one way or the other. But that does not mean there's an error in it. All you need to do is to try as much as possible to appreciate the fact that nothing could have happened to you without the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it is bad, you need to thank him, because he's the only one who can change it for the better. And if it is good, you need to thank him even more, for he's the only one who will increase for you. This is why the affair of a believer is amazing, as stated by the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam in his hadith. He says, Ajaban le amure mu'min, fa inna amurahu kullahu lahul khair. Amazing is the affair of a believer. For whatever happens to the believer, anything that the believer does, there is always goodness in it. If something happens to him that is not physically cherishable to him, then of course a believer realizes that that comes from Allah, and Allah will make it better. And if something good happens to him, he also feels contented that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase for him. In both ways, therefore, the believer does not find anything wrong in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done. He doesn't express regret. But those of us who have no ability to perceive or to understand what is coming behind the events that happen to us, we make all sorts of careless statements, such as, if I knew, I wouldn't have passed that road. If I knew, I wouldn't have done that. If I knew, I wouldn't have given him that help. No. That is a very wrong statement. The Prophet said, La nada meta fi sabr. There is no regret in being patient. There is no regret in doing good. There is no regret in accepting what comes to you by way of taqdeer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it better for you. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, in everything created by Allah, there is goodness. He drew our attention to such reality when it comes to speaking of alcohol. And you know that alcohol is not acceptable to us as Muslims. But the first verse revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tried to let us understand that in alcohol, there is evil. And in alcohol, there is goodness. Goodness to those who are non-Muslims, who trade in it, who make money from it, who get excitement from it. But it is wrong for the believers. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows best, finally revealed an ayah to us saying, it is bad for you. But in the first verse, Allah says, Yas'alunaka anil khamri wal maisir, qul fihima ithmun kabir, wa manafi'u linnas, wa ithmuhuma akbar min naf'ihima, Allahu akbar kabir. They ask you about alcoholism or intoxicants and gambling. Tell them in both of them, there is some benefit. And there is also some evil. But the evil in it is worse than the benefit. So it's left to them what they want to do. If you were to be restricted to this verse alone, you would think Allah has given you an option to decide what to do, whether to drink or not to drink alcohol, or to take intoxicants, not to take intoxicants. That's not the case. There's benefit in it for those who do not want to follow the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But for you who is a Muslim following the guidance of Allah, it's better for you to stay away from it. In every occurrence, therefore, there is a primary purpose. There is always two ways by which people respond to it. Yudillu bihi man yasha wa yahdi man yasha. Some people get guided by it, others get misguided by it. So it's not the occurrence, it's not your experiences from these creatures on the planet as they interact with you or you interact with them that you will be held accountable for. What you will be held accountable for is your own attitude, your behavior, how you interpret, how you relate with the occurrences that happen to you. Do you take them as an opportunity for you to stay away from Allah? Do they draw you closer to Allah? choice is yours. How you choose is what matters. That's what you will be held accountable for on the day of accountability. So, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, in every occurrence we see around us, there is a lesson. There is a hidden benefit. Our job is to strive to discover those hidden benefits. First of all, recognizing the fact that that thing could not have happened unless it was decreed by Allah or permitted by Allah to happen. And secondly, that it's happening. If it affects you adversely, it's not the end of it all. If it pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it could change things around. It's always important for us to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us and He will not do anything to harm us. Therefore, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the straight way, to give us that ability to appreciate His commandments and the ability to understand things that happen around us so that we'll be in a better position to make the right judgment. Again, everything that happens, there is goodness. And everything that happens also, there is something that is not so good. It could also be the other way around. But everything depends on the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to reach out to Allah all the time and ask for His guidance and ask for His protection. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all that. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.